You probably don't remember it, but you did. You walked onto a street and trusted that the driver coming towards you at 50 kilometers an hour would stay in his lane. A man you have never met, whose name you will never know, whose face you didn't even see. You ate food cooked by hands you'll never shake. You drank water purified by people you'll never thank. You walked past 100 strangers, any one of whom was physically capable of harming you, and your heart rate never moved. You think this is normal. You think this is nothing. But the real answer is far stranger, because no other animal on Earth does what you just did. Not one. A chimpanzee that meets an unfamiliar chimpanzee from another group does not relax. It does not share a meal. It does not assume good intentions. More often, it prepares for violence. For most species on this planet, a stranger is not a neighbor. A stranger is a threat. And yet here you are, surrounded by strangers, calm. So how did your brain learn to do the one thing almost nothing else in nature can do? How did you learn to trust someone you've never met? To answer that, you have to go back, way back, to a time before cities, before money, before language as you'd recognize it. For most of human history, your ancestors lived in small bands, 30 people, maybe 50. Everyone knew everyone. You knew who was kind and who was cruel. You knew who shared and who stole. Trust was simple, because trust was personal. You trusted the people you grew up beside, and you were wary of everyone else. In that world, a stranger really was dangerous. An unfamiliar face on the horizon could mean a raid, a rival, a threat to the children sleeping behind you. So your ancestors evolved a deep, instinctive caution toward outsiders. That caution is still inside you. You feel it when a stranger stands too close. You feel it walking down an empty street at night. But something changed. Something had to. Because the human story is not a story of staying in groups of 50. It is a story of those groups somehow learning to cooperate with each other, to trade, to form tribes, then towns, then nations of millions of people who will never meet, but who somehow hold together. How do you build a society out of strangers when your brain was built to fear them? The answer, it turns out, is partly chemical. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Paul Zak became obsessed with a single question. What, physically inside the body, allows one human to trust another? He suspected the answer was a molecule, a small ancient hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin was not new. It had been known for a century as the chemical of childbirth and bonding, the thing that floods a mother's body when she holds her newborn. It was the molecule of love between parent and child. Nobody expected it to have anything to do with strangers. But Zak and his colleagues designed an experiment. They gave people money and the chance to send some of it to a stranger they would never meet. If you sent money, it tripled. But you could only get any of it back if the stranger chose to share. To send your money was to make yourself vulnerable. To trust? Then they gave some of those people a tiny dose of oxytocin sprayed into the nose, and something remarkable happened. The people who received oxytocin became far more willing to trust. They sent more money. They risked more. Their fear of the stranger quietly dissolved. What was the hormone actually doing? Zak was careful here. The people on oxytocin did not become foolish. They did not gamble recklessly when the money was random. They did not lose their judgment. The molecule did just one thing. It lowered the fear of trusting another person. It quieted the ancient alarm that says, "Beware the unfamiliar face." Think about what that means. A single ancient molecule, the same one that bonds a mother to her baby, can be turned outward. It can be aimed at a stranger. And when it is, the wall between you and them begins to fall. This was the discovery. Evolution did not build you a brand new system for trusting strangers. It did something cleverer and stranger. It took the ancient machinery of family love, the chemistry that binds parent to child, and it stretched it. It expanded the circle. It tricked a brain built for 30 people into caring about millions. You don't trust strangers because you stopped being cautious. You trust them because your ancestors found a way to make strangers feel, just slightly, like family. But chemistry alone is not the whole story, because oxytocin needs a reason to flow. It responds to signals. A kind face, a gentle voice, a moment of shared feeling, a touch on the shoulder. even a smile from across a room. Zach found this too. In later studies, he showed people emotional stories, short films about real human suffering and connection. And when people felt empathy, when they were genuinely moved, their oxytocin rose. Their generosity towards strangers rose with it. Feeling for someone, even someone on a screen, even someone you'll never meet, lit the same chemical fire that once burned only for kin. This is why a stranger's story can make you cry. This is why you can grieve for people on the other side of the planet. This is why a single photograph can move millions of hearts at once. Your ancestors evolved that empathy in a world of 50 people, and now it reaches across the entire world. But there is a darker edge to this. The same chemistry that builds trust inside a group can build walls around it. Oxytocin does not make you love everyone equally. It makes you love your group. And research has shown that when oxytocin rises, so does loyalty to your own side, sometimes alongside suspicion of the other side. The molecule that pulls you toward your tribe can also push you away from theirs. This is the uncomfortable truth hiding inside your capacity for trust. The very same mechanism that lets you trust a stranger as a friend is the mechanism that can let you see another stranger as an enemy. Us and them are built from the same chemistry. They are two faces of one ancient hormone. So who counts as us? That, it turns out, is the most important question your brain quietly answers every single day. Because your circle of trust is not fixed, it is drawn, and it can be redrawn. A uniform, a flag, a shared language, a story told around a fire, a team you cheer for, a faith you hold. All of these are ways of telling your ancient brain, this stranger is one of us. Trust them. Think about how easily that line moves. A person who felt like an outsider an hour ago can become an ally the moment you learn you support the same team, or come from the same town, or laugh at the same joke. Nothing about them changed. Only the line did. Only the story your brain was telling about who belongs. Every functioning society is, underneath, a machine for convincing millions of strangers that they belong to the same band of 50. Money is a story strangers agree to believe. Law is a promise strangers agree to keep. A nation is the largest act of imagination our species has ever performed. A band of 50 stretched across 100 million people who will never meet, but who agree, somehow, to trust. And it is fragile. It depends on those signals continuing to flow. When the signals break, when people stop seeing each other as us, the trust that holds everything together can collapse with terrifying speed. The economist Stephen Knack, working with others, found something striking. The level of trust between strangers in a country predicts its prosperity, its health, even its happiness. Where strangers trust each other, societies grow rich and stable. Where they don't, everything becomes harder, slower, more expensive, more afraid. Trust is not a soft thing. Trust is the invisible infrastructure beneath everything you have. But to really see how strange your trust is, look at what it had to overcome. Your distant ancestors did not live in a gentle world. The unknown face on the horizon was, far too often, exactly what they feared. Rival bands competed for the same water, the same game, the same valley. A misjudged stranger could cost you everything. So natural selection sharpened a reflex that still fires inside you today. Suspicion. The instant, wordless read of an unfamiliar person as a possible danger. That reflex never left. It is why a footstep behind you at night raises the hair on your arms. It is why an unfamiliar number on your phone makes you hesitate. It is why a crowd of strangers can feel, in the wrong moment, like a threat instead of a comfort. And yet, layered over that ancient fear, your species grew something new. Not a replacement for the suspicion, but a counterweight to it. A second voice, just as old, whispering that this stranger might also be a partner, a trade, a friend, a future. Trust, then, is not the absence of fear. Trust is fear, overruled. Every time you let a stranger near, two ancient systems argue inside you, and one of them wins. The miracle is not that you sometimes feel afraid. The miracle is how often you don't. Now think back to this morning. The driver who stayed in his lane, the hands that cooked your food, the strangers you walked past without fear. None of that was nothing. All of it was the product of millions of years of evolution. a borrowed chemistry of love, and an agreement so deep you never even noticed you were making it? Every calm moment among strangers is a small miracle your ancestors could barely have imagined, and it asks something of you too, because the signals that build trust are not only received, they are sent. Every kind word you give a stranger, every small honesty, every moment you choose to be trustworthy when no one is forcing you, you are feeding the same invisible system. You are telling someone else's ancient brain, you are safe with me. I am one of yours. You are descended from people who feared the unknown face on the horizon, people who clutched their children tighter when a stranger drew near. And from that fear, somehow your species built the opposite. A world where you can fall asleep on a train surrounded by people you've never met and trust them with your unguarded life. So the next time you walk down a crowded street and feel nothing at all, stop. Notice the calm. Notice how ordinary it feels. Notice that you are doing something no other creature on earth can do. Because this morning, you handed your life to a stranger, and the most extraordinary thing about it is that you never even noticed.